Hey everybody, welcome back to another quarantine edition of the Zelo Zone. Your host Matt Bacalling here as always, and joining me this week is the one and only Bryce Benjamin, Jesus Bryce, one sexy mofo, the Messiah. Any way that anybody knows you, welcome, brother.
The man of many names. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, you've been around long enough to embrace many personas and have yourself kind of put out there in many different forms. But regardless of what name people refer to you by, it's good to see you. Good to be talking to you right now for sure. I pose this question every time we start off: how are you doing? How are you holding up? How is quarantine treating you?
Still alive. Quarantine sucks because it's at this point just boring. But I mean, I'm doing all right. Trying to keep my mental state good. Try to stay from getting depressed. But
it's a struggle, man.
I have good days, have bad days. Yeah.
I can 100% feel you, and I know you're not alone out there in that entire mindset. But glad to hear that you're safe and doing well. And we've talked before in a similar capacity back when we first started doing some Zelo interviews or Zelo Zone interviews. I think you're probably one of our first ones. So we dove into your wrestling background at the time and people who may have known you from back in the day or as a trainer in the Chicagoland area as a talent. So we won't dive too much into the wrestling aspect of that because they can go back through YouTube archives and find those and find those.
We're getting real.
But I am super interested in talking to you a lot about other things that are going on in the world right now, especially things that you're passionate about. But to your pop, I mean that's quite the impressive collection.
That's barely a wall of it. So yeah.
Mike, are you just surrounded in your room? For anybody who is just listening and not watching, there's a pretty substantial 6 rows of vinyl pops.
And it goes all the way down to the floor. You're seeing like the top 6 levels, but it goes all the way down to the floor. I'm literally 3 out of my 4 walls are covered in Funko Pops.
How about which one is your prized possession? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, that'll be my grails over here. I'm kind of turned. I don't know if people might try to rob me now. So everything on this little shelf here, all my grails. Those are all the high-end ones. And my most prized possession is my glow-in-the-dark White Ranger.
Amazing.
I can probably sell that now for about $500.
Wow. No kidding.
But, I'm never gonna, but yeah. Those are my grails. Those are all the pops that are on the end of being valued at $100 and over.
That's Ethan's inheritance right there is what that is.
Yeah. Anybody breaks to my house and just know that I'll try to kill them for trying to get my pops.
Incredible. Are you always on the hunt for new ones? Have you reached the capacity yet?
Not so much anymore as far as hunting, because a lot of stuff are coming out now. I'm either over it, like they keep making kind of the same ones, and now I just kind of go after the ones I really want. So every now and then I got stuff pre-ordered, so there's stuff coming in now. But I'm not out hunting like I used to be. I used to go out like almost every day, just going looking at stores, just seeing whatever they had and trying to track stuff down. So yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty impressive collection that you have accumulated already. So kudos to you for.
Yeah, I think I can tell you an exact number. Hold on, I'm gonna tell you exactly how many I have. Just pull this up. I have.
Is that your running inventory log?
Yeah, I actually have one. So I currently have 582 Funko.
582. Yep. Impressive.
Yep.
As crazy as it is, I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there with a little bit more than that. But
oh yeah, there's people that have like housefuls. Yeah.
And that is this like your office that you're in right now? Is this your dedicated collection?
This is my bedroom, so I sleep with them.
Surrounded at all times.
Yeah.
Incredible. So we will touch on wrestling just a little bit because for the sake of our channel and for how people are familiar with you, professional wrestling is your primary, the way that people are familiar with you. Yeah. So you have been participating and actively wrestling on the independent wrestling scene for how long now?
I think as of May of this year, it'll be either 17 or 18 years. I think 17. That's like come May this year.
Impressive. Yeah. How old were you when you started?
21, I believe. No, 22 or 23. I'm really bad when it comes to like time and dates, but
I think
it all runs together now anyways. Okay. Yeah. So I mean you've had a very impressive run. Anyone who is not familiar with you can easily find a lot of your work on YouTube and online in general. But I think Yeah, yeah. Pick up the old tape
Yeah.
trading. But I think that a lot of us, including myself, first encountered you in AAW back in the
Mhm.
early initiations, and then everywhere from obviously freelance now to Gali and all over
Yeah.
the Midwest for the most part, and most recently getting to work some Impact collaborations. So
Yeah.
I think that it's pretty fair to say that you are a staple in terms of the Chicagoland area when it comes to the majority of places that you've been working for, at least as of late.
Yeah, apparently I'm pretty known in the Midwest, which is always somewhat news to me when people are like, "Oh, I heard about you here." I'm just like, "How?" But okay. Uh, so yeah, it's that whole weird thing where it's like you're kind of famous, but not really. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like
you
people know
have
who I
a
am,
good
but at the
amount
same time,
of
like no
notoriety
one
to
knows
you.
who I
Yeah,
am.
and people don't sell yourself short. People know who you are, and they should know who you are, based on your talent. And then the other half of your career, I would say, is becoming a little bit more popular these days. Is your role as a trainer and running the Freelance Wrestling Academy, and previous to that, running the what it was called Purgatory Wrestling Academy.
Stories.
So
Yeah.
that has kind of taken a few different iterations in time, but you've essentially been training for, or at least a teacher and a coach for probably the last 10, 13 years maybe.
10, 11, yeah, 10, 11 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean, it was I myself and several other people started training with you very early on, maybe back
Mhm.
in 2007 or so. So it's been probably a
Yeah.
Yeah.
good 13 years at this point.
Yeah, well, it's 2007. 'Cause, yeah, it was the same year that my son was born.
That's
That's when
right.
we started all training together. Yeah. So yeah, it's 2007.
So I mean that's been a pretty significant period of time, and I know that we spoke about this before, and you thoroughly enjoyed that portion of your attention to the wrestling community and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But now I guess at this point too, it's also fun to see what some of your products and students have become from going through your training regimes and your programs and everything from your Kylie Rays to your Pat Monix and a lot of the people who are still kind of local in the Chicago level, but I think we've seen a good amount of success. It's fair to assume that there's a good amount of pride that comes along with seeing a lot of that,
Oh yeah.
especially
Yeah.
based on kind of what you
Like
put out there.
I'm
It's incredible, and it's really fun to see, and it's obviously a testament to you and what you're able to instill in a lot of these students that they are now showcasing in the real world and in the wrestling world that stems back from your philosophies and your style of coaching, which I know that
listen.
yeah. It's awesome, and
Like
and it's very exciting to see that, and I'm sure it's kind of difficult right now when we're not able to be out there and being there training and whatnot. Have you been in contact with a lot of your students? Are there forms of communication that are going on at the time that you guys aren't able to actually physically get together and train?
Yeah, yeah. Like we have like little group chats and stuff like that, so everybody's kind of in contact, so we get to talk. I have kind of gone into like a kind of radio silence on that, just because I'm just like trying to center myself here. So yeah, but no, I still contact with some of them, and like we still check in, make sure everybody's okay, and um, we got guys like Kevin Harvey, who's a huge part of the school now, and like he's offering like online things, and they're doing little discords with them and watching videos, analyzing matches. So they're still getting to be active as far as their education goes.
That's
as far as the
awesome.
wrestling. Yeah.
That's awesome, and
So yeah.
that's a huge resource for those too, especially who are new and just getting started
Mhm.
before kind of all of this went down to still be able to participate in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Great. So I think so we can shift gears a little bit now because there's a lot of subjects that I just want to talk to you specifically about because I know that you are very publicly vocal, and when I say publicly, I mean social media primarily,
Yeah.
about a lot of given subjects, a lot of unpopular opinions and conspiracy
Mhm.
theories potentially, and it kind of runs the gamut. And I know that you're very open about it and also very passionate about a lot of these things. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to get your take more so than the limited amount of text that we're able to get from social media,
Yeah.
and just kind of elaborate a little bit on some of those topics. So I think generally speaking that you have a tendency to question popular opinion.
Hmm.
on a lot of things. Do you think that stems have you always been that way in terms of, kind of questioning what is being put out there as fact, and being kind of cynical in a way, just
Yeah,
making
yeah.
sure
Oh,
that you're
yeah.
able to
That's
dissect
what my mom
information
always calls.
and just be a kind of a critical thinker, and you're not just taking everything at face value? Have you
Right.
always
Yeah.
been that way?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, my mom backing up for me, even as a kid, I've always been cynical. Like it's like, okay, you tell me this, I'm always like either yeah, but why, or I'm like, okay, well, explain to me more how we got to here. So yeah, I've always been a thinker of like questioning everything, which I don't see as a bad way to be. Like my son's the same way. I understand how annoying it is because now he does it to me, and I'm like, ah, kid, just shut up, all right? So I see that now, but yeah, it's always been me. Yeah. I remember a lot of teachers kind of not hating me, but just being like, "Ah, this guy," because I'm like, "Okay, it says this." I'm like, "But this is kind of how I view it in the world." So I'm like, "How are these things the same?" Kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
I think for most of anyone who knows you, or familiar with you, you're very outspoken and a self-proclaimed flat earther. and
Yes.
and so let us hear. I just want to hear from you if you can kind of educate our viewers who may not be familiar with what that concept is. Kind of the
Mhm.
Cliff Note version of what it means to be a flat earther and believe in the concept of flat Earth.
Well, it has a bad stigmatism to the name because people hear flat earthers right away, they think like nut jobs. And there's a ton of nut jobs out there. Like if you look up flat Earth, like there's a bunch of theories that even I'm just like, nah, like come on. But for me, it's basically it's just it's proof of creation that we were created. We have a purpose for being here. We're not just this cosmic mistake, like also like that. And like it basically just goes off of everything of the world in which I actually perceive it and live in it each day. Like the concepts that the earth isn't some magic spinning ball floating in nothingness. I see more things to support the opposite of that. That we are stable. That it is a more more or less a flat plane. Not like flat as a pancake. We have hills, valleys, and depths and stuff like that, but it's not a sphere.
Okay, and to confirm, you
Like
you
I
bel
don't believe in space.
okay, you don't believe in
I don't.
space. Okay, and you
Right.
I don't believe space as we know it, as we've been taught. I don't think that exists.
okay, and you but you believe in creationism.
Yes, yeah, that we do have a creator, something created us, God, whatever how you want to look at it, something created us. We're intelligent beings, so I can't see us coming from a non-intelligent source.
And at what point did you start to subscribe to that concept and that theory?
Probably in like my early 20s. Like I said, for as long as a period, I didn't believe in creationism. I was big on science and just Big Bang and evolution, and there is no real reason to why we're here. Like things exploded, shit got mixed together, and it magically created all the things we see. And it wasn't until my I say like mid 20s where I started to realize like there's a lot more going on, that we're more connected to this world than we realize. Like we're connected to everything. Yeah.
Did
Like
did you did you grow up with the religious background? Were
yeah,
you raised in a religious capacity?
yeah.
Raised in church. Yeah, I've been in church all my childhood, and even in my teen and early adulthood was going to church. I went from being Baptist with my mom, and then as I got older, chose my own religion, became Catholic. Yeah, and it was through the church that I lost my faith in God.
Yeah.
Isn't it so interesting how that
Yeah.
works?
It was because of the church. Yeah, and that's when I started realizing like, oh man, I was like the church has nothing to do with God. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. I started realizing that, and that's when I got away from the church, and that's when I found my connection with the world itself, the universe, if you want to say. Yeah,
And so
yeah. That's
that was kind of in your early 20s. So at this period of time, there's not a specific religion that you subscribe to as
no, and I still don't. Like, I don't believe in religion.
got it. Okay.
Like, I think religion itself is problematic because I'm like, it's well, on the surface, they're all kind of the same. Like
Yeah.
I've read many different books of religion. And I'm like, they're all the same stories, different names, little changes here and there. But I'm like, it's the same story pretty much, and it has its own little things that diverge. So I believe religion is a kind of a man-made construct, like religion itself. And the people that are the most religious tend to be the most judgmental, which goes completely against the religion itself. So it's like a whole thing where I'm just like, okay, religion's not the answer, yeah, but I do believe there's something more than us.
Okay, so when it
So, but
comes to the concept then of flat Earth in whatever, is that the proper terminology? Like obviously that's what is.
Yeah, it'd be a flat earther. Yeah, I would say a flat earther. Yeah.
But the premise outside of believing in creationism and kind of disowning the idea of Big Bang and other
mhm.
potential theories is that essentially though the Earth is not a sphere shape.
Right. It's not this sphere shape. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of other planets. Like I said, I don't view Earth as a planet itself, and I don't think that Jupiter, Mars, also like I've seen them through telescopes, so that but I don't think they are what we have been taught that they are.
Interesting.
Like they're pretty much lights in the sky. Like I don't think that we can go and land on Mars. I don't think Mars is a planet to be landed on. Yeah.
Okay, so
And stuff like
based on, and this might kind of be a loaded question at this point,
that.
but based on the stuff that is popular knowledge, whether factual or not, why do you think those things have come about in terms of why we were taught to believe that these things are the way they are, and why if it was something else other than what the popular belief is, why didn't that come first?
Well, that would all. Well, the original I belief was that the Earth was flat. That was the original belief. It wasn't until after I think what Columbus set sail that they were like, oh, actually it's round. Yeah, it's a sphere. You come around the other side, which can still be explained on a flat Earth. Like you circumnavigate if you're following a compass. If north is the center, then your compass is always going to point north. So you're actually turning kind of in a left to like a clockwise or counterclockwise circle, but in your mind, you're going around this sphere. So it all depends on how you look at it. Which I mean, and again, I could be totally wrong.
Sure,
Just my
it's all
yeah, yeah.
subjective at this point.
And that's my I will always make sure that people understand that's my ultimate thing is I don't know. And the same idea goes for even about if there's space, if we're a planet, we don't actually know. Because all the people that have taught me about space have never been to space. My science teacher hasn't been to space, but they have whatever knowledge and education and whatever the books say. So like no one's ever been to Jupiter yet. The book will tell me everything about Jupiter. I was like, well, how do you know? You've never been there.
So I guess a better way to frame that question is, why do you believe, or what's the opinion of the Flat Earth Society as to why these are the popular beliefs and why these are the things that we were taught?
It was stemmed back far beyond our understanding of the world. Like if okay, my belief will go with let's take the Bible, what it would, I guess would be the Judeo-Christian Bible. You would say you take that story, then we are in the realm of like evil or whatever energies like this. So it wants to hide the truth from us. So right away it started to mess with the reality. It teaches us a different reality than what actually exists, which disconnects us from the truth. So if the Bible kind of describes the world as flat, like how and it doesn't mention any other planet. So like if you want people to not believe in that, you have to start destroying their view of that. And is now it's like okay, well, okay, the Bible says it's flat. We're gonna get them to believe it's a globe. Oh, there's no other planets. There's tons of other planets. Life here is not special at all. So it's kind of like an opposite story.
Sure, and it
But
comes
that's
down to
it.
the fundamentals.
Right. And once you convince a few generations of that, and they keep teaching it, so now it became the norm. So no one's actively out there trying to deceive anyone. Like I don't believe my science teacher was like in on it, like okay, we're gonna get these people to believe. Like no, this is what they were taught, this is what they believe, and so forth, so on.
So you,
So it would go back further. I mean, probably back to Adam and Eve if you want to go that far on where the deception began.
I guess at this point, is there a global society of some sort that you believe is protecting these ideals and stories from being disproven on a major level? Or how is it that we're able to continue subscribing to these as popular beliefs without it being combated on a bigger level than what some of these, pop up flat earthers or other theories have kind of been able to prove or disprove?
I would believe so. I believe there's definitely a major group that is set on keeping these secrets and knows things that we aren't privy to. Because I said I do believe in evil. I believe evil things exist. So I believe there are people that have very nefarious things. And whether they be not necessarily saying they're not human, but they might be under some different kind of influence. Because to me, it takes a certain type of person or thing to do certain things.
And why do you think that exists?
Well, it would that would all go to like belief. Like I say, my belief, because the world that I believe to exist is a world of creationism where there is good and evil. There is, for like there's the devil and there is like God. So like if this world is being controlled and governed by the devil, then his whole thing is the goal that he has is to corrupt all of our souls. That's his ultimate it's basically his big fuck you to God. Is I'll take your creation and turn them against you. Yeah. So that would be the ultimate end game for him, for Lucifer, for whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So to summarize, essentially that we're kind of in an existence of constant good versus evil, and it's just a constant power struggle, power play against one another, whether it's visible or not.
Yeah, wait. It's a realm that we can't necessarily see. Maybe we get little glimpses of it or things cross over here and there. Like I said, I believe in spirituality and like these different realms of existence. But again, because those are all in the Bible. If anybody actually reads the Bible, those things exist. Um, I guess that would tie into the whole like ghost and stuff like that. I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but I do believe in like some form of energy. Yeah. So it's like it's a lot, and it's like it probably sounds batshit insane, but that's no more crazier to me than flying through space. Yeah.
No, I hear you. So I mean, given all of that, though, do you think that this is just an ongoing power struggle that will continue forever? Do you believe that there is a D-Day of some sort that is destined to come, or like where does this entire journey progress to?
Well, according to my creator, there's an end time. Like there is a time where this existence that we know will cease to exist. Yeah.
Right.
When that time is, no one knows. So I hate all the people who are always like, "Oh, end of the world is next month," and "Oh, this day." I'm like, no one knows. Like it ends probably not in our lifetime. Yeah.
For sure. So let's then fast forward to modern day and what we're dealing with right now. What are your thoughts about the coronavirus global pandemic? Obviously there's a lot of conspiracy theories based on the creation of that, or kind of where this has come from and the way that it's being dealt with. I just want to get your general thoughts on it, and kind of what you, if there's any of those theories in relation to coronavirus that you are leaning towards more than any others.
Um, I think well, coronavirus exists. This COVID-19 strain. It's a real thing. I don't think it is the dangerous serial killer that they're making it out to be, which has basically been done by the media. It's a virus. It's something that is not anything new to humanity. We faced viruses before. We're gonna keep facing viruses as we go on. That's just the law of the land. Um, and I think this is a very it's one of the weaker viruses. Whenever I say weak virus, people get upset with me about that. Oh, because people are dying. Like, I'm not saying that people aren't dying. It has the ability to kill people just like any other virus does, but it's on the weaker end. Like its mortality rate is extremely low in the grand scheme of things.
In comparison to like swine flu, or even going further back to Spanish flu and
influenza, yeah, and just normal something like this has a very low kill rate where you're more likely to survive this than you would die from it. And there are those who will die from it, but it's because of a bunch of different other like reasons. Yeah.
Right. So do you think then that the reason why a lot of these precautions are being put into place, do you think that they are unnecessary? Do you think that they're premature, or is this all kind of stemming from because we're not really prepared to deal with this virus specifically?
I the part I what I believe it's this pandemic is being used as a political tool now. Like I believe, like I said, like this virus is less deadlier than influenza, and we face that every single year. And I think the numbers is anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 worldwide yearly die from influenza, and we have no shutdowns for that. So that, and that's a far more dangerous virus. This is simply convenience. Like this outbreak came along at a perfect time where it could be used to sway public opinion.
Now, does that have any bearing on outside of the U.S.? For example, like these were things happening internationally before it was at least tested or discovered on U.S. soil. Do you believe that to be true? That everything going on in China and Italy and those things existed before it got to the U.S.?
Yeah. I think I don't think any of those things are like made up. Like there was an outbreak in China, there was the outbreak in Italy and France. Like it's doing its thing. It's spread. It's a pandemic. That is 100% fact. Like it is a pandemic. It has spread across different continents. Yeah. Um, and more places are um not ill-equipped. It's new. It's a new virus. It's gonna wreak havoc because it's new. So we don't have immunity to it because our bodies haven't been exposed to it yet. So I always say my main thing is it has to run its course. That's the only thing that can be done. Like there's no miracle vaccine and there's no medicine that's gonna magically fix it. Like no, it's gonna run its course and it's gonna be a thing that we now face pretty much yearly. This is now gonna get added into flu season. Yeah.
And yeah, like it's true. And I guess then to that point though, in terms of being a political play, I guess my question to you then is how do politics play into the international side of things outside? Like obviously we see a lot of political rhetoric happening on a daily basis in terms of the U.S. because we, based on what the federal government says, based on what local governments are implementing. So there's a lot of that local power struggle that we as Americans are seeing. I'm not well versed in the way that things are handled in Italy or Spain or France or anything like that. So I can't necessarily say that it's being used as a political tool there, but
no, I'm only speaking for the U.S. Yeah, like I can't speak for those places. Yeah.
So, but do you think that those things are happening internationally the way that they are happening here, or is it just kind of our worldview is a little bit more narrow because of what our media is covering?
I think our worldview is it's very narrow. So yeah, I can't tell you what's happening politically in Italy with this. I'm like honestly, I don't believe it's as political there as it is here. Like I believe that because they have a different government structure than we do. So everything's being handled like everyone wants to keep comparing the U.S. to China, which annoys me because I'm like there's a whole different form of government, a whole different form of they don't have the freedoms we have in the U.S. We're kind of unique in that way. So everyone wants to say, oh well, this is what China did. I'm like, yeah, well, we can't do that here because our rules don't allow for that sort of thing.
And do you think we're at a benefit or a disadvantage because of that?
It's always a benefit. Like freedom will always be a benefit. And I know people are gonna see it, and there are people who don't see it that way. They see it as, oh no, we need to like do what's necessary for this virus. But I tell those people to go and investigate and look into the virus itself and see that its numbers, its stats, everything that's coming from the same sources that are telling you, hey, this is a virus and it's killing people. Those very same sources are also telling you the information about the virus itself, and it's not that big of a threat. And when I say that, I'm not downplaying anyone who's been affected by it. I'm not downplaying any deaths. They're all tragic, but the reality is we've always had thousands of deaths every year. That's nothing new. So
given that though, not taking any type of deaths for granted, like obviously we're seeing a lot of different stories coming out of hospitals from essential workers and stuff like that. Right. Because of the fact that there are any deaths, period, do you believe that there is any form of intervention that needs to be happening in terms of the interventions that we are doing? Do you believe those to be necessary to prevent any deaths, period, regardless of if we see deaths on a regular basis from other things or not, because we have something that is fatal? Do we have a social responsibility to intervene on any kind of level to minimize that as much as possible, regardless of whether the mortality rate is what they say it is?
We do and don't, because I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying live your life. Be clean. Like they tell you, hey, soap and water, wash your hands, and you'll pretty much get rid of the virus. So I'm like, they're telling you just how weak this virus actually is. And even if you contract it now with new studies that they're having and new numbers, the mortality rate of this is actually about 0.1%. So that's like 1/1000th of a percent.
But when looking at America, that's still several 100,000 people potentially.
Yeah, it is. And but just in Illinois alone, like I think just in Chicago alone, our population is like 3 million or something like that. So I'm like, we have to. No one's looking at everything. You're not looking at. We have a population of the world of about 8 billion people. So I'm like, I'm not saying that these deaths don't matter at all, but I'm saying, but it's a very small number of deaths to have this kind of panic. And I think that the isolation and lockdown is only going to make things worse rather than make them better. Because now people are doing things that aren't necessarily actually helping. Like people are like, oh, I wear my gloves and stuff to the store. But I'm like, that's not really preventing anything because you're going to touch everything in the store with your gloves or whatever. I see people get in their cars and then they're driving with those very same gloves. So if it's on your gloves, now it's in your car. And everything you got in the store that you bought from the store, if it was there, you now took home. So I'm like, there really is no way to get away from it. But we have to also realize that I'm not saying the virus isn't dangerous. It's not dangerous when it comes to like percentage.
Like even if you do
if you're
contract
just comparing numbers.
Yeah, like you're more likely to survive this virus than you are to die from it.
So do you think then let's say just for conversation's sake, because there are other things that are deadlier, do you think that we should be implementing different interventions for these other things that we have not previously in order to also help curb those numbers? Or is it because, is your thought process that because we don't do anything for these, we shouldn't be reacting the way we are for this?
I just don't think that I don't think there's anything that can be done because I say we live in a country that has its freedoms in place the way it does. There's no real way to govern this because what is good for someone else can be can wreak havoc for others, and that's kind of what's happening now. So they're seeing it as, oh, it's a good thing to kind of isolate and blah blah, but that's wreaking havoc on people's lives. There are people that are losing their jobs, are losing their homes, and losing their mental stability. So we have to take those people into account too. So I'm like, basically, there is no way to make everyone happy.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I also don't think that there's, I mean, and this is just my personal opinion, that holding people responsible is one thing, but people actually being responsible is another.
Thing.
Yeah, and having the trust in people to take those personal precautions is kind of a toss up depending on what your belief system is, or kind of.
And it's always gonna be. And that's my whole thing. Like we can't control that, and people are so panicked and upset. They want to control other people. I'm like, well, we can't control other people. Control what you do, and that's all you can do. I can control my precautions. Like I don't. I'm not afraid of this virus. I'm not necessarily sitting around worried because I can sit around and worry myself to death about everything. The moment I wake up and leave my bed, I'm at risk of dying. When you go out into that world, you're risking dying. So if I live my life in fear that way, that's a miserable life. I'm not telling you to go out and just start licking shelves, but I'm saying like, hey, like be a person. Don't do gross things that you wouldn't have done before. I never walked through the supermarket and walked shoulder to shoulder with strangers or coughed in someone's face or had someone cough in my face. So it's all these measures are things that aren't really changing because I wasn't no the majority of people weren't doing those things to begin with. Yeah. I wasn't just swapping fucking body fluids with a stranger. Yeah.
So as these restrictions start to loosen up a little bit, and we're seeing that happen kind of on a state to state basis, at least locally here in the U.S. Do I think that it's fair to say that no matter whether numbers get better or not, this whole thing has kind of shifted the way the world is going to operate moving forward. One thing that I kind of compare it to is, before 9/11, you weren't going through TSA the way that you are now. Yeah. You're not going through metal detectors at schools and at arenas and things like that. Do you think that this is going to have a major impact on the way that we operate, similar to that capacity when it comes to getting out there and especially when it comes to live events and precautions that are being taken?
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's the danger in it. That's the part I keep trying to tell everyone to look at is look at those things. Like think about the amount of control that is now going to be implemented. I'm like, people want to look at it and say like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it, but at the same time, you have to look at every aspect. Like I mean, power breeds corruption. So I'm like, I don't trust anyone to have control over my life. Period. The only person that has control is me. I'm responsible for everything that happens in my life as far as my decisions and situations. So I'm not gonna give. It will never be okay to give the government power to say, well, you're allowed to do these things and only these things this certain way. That's not okay. Yeah.
Right. So potentially that kind of goes against what democracy is supposed to be.
Yeah, it goes against our entire constitution. Yeah, like it's not okay. The government is not supposed to have. We're supposed to control the government, not the other way around.
Right.
Like the government is supposed to be for the people, by the people.
For sure. So to that regard, then, based on the way that the government, both on a federal and local level, are reacting, regardless of political affiliation, do you think they're doing a good job? Do you think that they should be doing something different?
I don't think they're doing a good job, because I think they're all doing things. I'll say, well, me, I always tell people follow the money. I was like even Illinois, it's still being shut down. It's being prolonged now, and I'm like, why? The longer that they hold out on this thing, the more money the government now can get funded from the feds, as far as being like, oh, we're gonna need this to recover from this. So I'm like, it's a money game, because all the politicians that are telling us to stay inside, they're all still being paid, and they're making big checks. They're not getting little checks. They're not living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. So they're all still making. Essentially, they're probably millionaires, most of them. So it's easy for them to be like, oh yeah, we should totally just stay locked down a little longer. Well, it doesn't work for a large majority of the population in which you're supposed to be governing over. Yeah.
Now, do you believe in the concept that it should be up to the states, or do you believe that it should be kind of put together from passed down from a federal level?
No, it has to be up to the states, because each state has different things going on. Like here in Illinois, we have our numbers. We have our number of people that are affected by it, and number of cases of deaths. So like, it has to be based off of our situation. So what's happening in Florida isn't what's happening in Illinois. So I'm like, we can't just do an overall blanket of like, all right, everybody needs to just open up. Like, no, I totally understand the need for state by state, but the people have to be taken into account. It can't be left only to the governing bodies.
Let's stick on the subject of federal government for a second, because based on my perception of what you put out there on social media, you're currently a fan of the current office and both the presidency and kind of other things that are going on. Do you get a lot of flack for that?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's this day and age, it's like a instant like death notice to be a Trump supporter. Yeah. Which, and then the whole thing explained to me is that I wasn't a Trump supporter in the beginning. When he got elected, I was like, really? Again, I didn't even vote then, because I was like, fuck voting. But I sat back and watched America happen. And when he got elected, I was like, really? Like this fucking guy? Yeah. But again, people have to get off of the whole going by what someone says versus what they do. Like, actions will always speak louder than words to me. So I look into it, like his policies and stuff that he's done and implemented, and I go beyond it. And to be honest, I'm like, he's not doing a bad job as a president. Like, he seems to actually legitimately care about the country and wants the country to flourish. Yeah. And to me, that's what a president should be about. Yeah.
Were you a fan of his prior to presidential days at all? Like, obviously there's a history in the wrestling world.
Yeah, I mean, he's in WWE, and that was funny. It was cool. Yeah. So, but I wasn't like this huge like Donald Trump like fanboy. But like, yeah, no, I was like, yeah, I know Donald Trump. I know who he is. Yeah, he's a rich guy. Yeah, but he's funny
for sure. So
I respect him because he's real. Like, people hate the way he talks, and that's what I respect about him, though, because he's been the same guy. He hasn't changed.
No filter.
It's just the same Donald Trump I saw in WWE, the same Trump I saw on what was his show, The Apprentice. Yeah, like, he is that dude, and I respect the fact that from the get-go he was talking this way, and he's like, this is who I am. I'm gonna speak his truth. This is how he views things. He's not afraid to say it. So I respect that, because we've had politicians just smile and lie in our face my entire lifetime. Yeah. So I'm like, I respect the guy who just tells it like it is. He's not afraid to go out there in a press conference and say, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I respect the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Do you foresee?
Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't.
Right. I mean, at this point, it's kind of a damned if we do, damned if we don't.
Yeah. I'm like, I get that. I understand that, because hey, I have a lot of situations in my life where I'm like, hey man, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I don't fucking know.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think that that we will see a Trump presidency for another 4 years?
Absolutely. It's all, especially, I mean, given the competition, yes. But I can tell you right now, I already know Biden's probably his running mate's going to be like Michelle Obama or something. They're going to try to Royal Rumble this whole situation. She's going to be the surprise number 30 entrant, trying to ensure it. Because there's no way you can tell me they honestly believe that he's fit to be president.
It's super interesting.
No way.
It's very, very interesting.
No way.
Like, that's, I mean, without divulging too much, I mean, to look at the big picture and be like, this is the best we have to offer.
Yeah, like, there's no way they honestly back him. Yeah, like, their plan has to be get him in and then immediately be like, all right, you have to step down because you're kind of incompetent. Let's get your vice president to be president now. So that's why I really think it's going to end up being like Michelle Obama. I mean, dude, life is wrestling. This is one big wrestling.
It's all a work.
Yeah, this is one big angle. But no, I think Trump's gonna win because no matter how bad the media slanders him, anybody who takes the time to look into it even a little bit will see that okay, he's not this person that he's not this big racist guy like that. I'm like, is Trump narcissistic? Absolutely. Is he an asshole? Absolutely. But he's not all the other things that people keep saying. He's not an anti-Semite. He's not a Nazi. He's not any of these things that people keep just saying with no real bearing. They're just saying things because that's what's cool to say.
And to your point, that type of rhetoric towards the office or the president isn't anything new. I mean, regardless of whoever is on office, you're getting some kind of criticism.
You're hated by half the people. Yeah, no matter what.
Right. Do you then believe in the two-party system? Do you think that needs to change? How would you restructure things?
We have more than two parties.
Well, you wouldn't know it based on voting records, but we do.
And we have more than two parties, but no one. It doesn't exist. There's a third party, but everybody's like, you're a Democrat or Republican. And I'm like, yeah, I'm neither. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. Like I don't necessarily. I got sick of elections being the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
And that's why I stopped voting. I was voting when I was younger and I turned 18. I was like, oh, voting. But when we got to the point where I sat back and realized, I'm like, I'm sick of voting for, well, who's not as bad?
Right.
I'm like, that's not a choice.
Do you think that will ever change? Like, granted, I think that as we get older and different generations start to come up and start to try to push for world change, we may see some differences. But do you think we'll ever get to a point where we kind of break that concept and actually try to find the most fit person to lead the country?
Not until people stop simply believing in what they're told. In order to get there, you're going to have to question authority. In order to get to that point, we're going to have to look into, okay, the news is saying this. Oh, they're telling me that Biden's great. Okay, let me find out. Let me look into Joe Biden and see if Biden's actually great. So until people aren't afraid to disobey authority, then no, we'll never get there.
And do you think that's a generational thing, or do you think that's just kind of human nature or American society?
That's just American society. We've been so conditioned to accept dog shit as an apple. Yeah, just like well, no, but people have become like I tell people all the time, like they've become accustomed to being lied to by politicians. Like people don't like Trump because he'll say something that's pretty honest. Yeah, he'll give his honest opinion, and people can't stand it. Like everybody's mad. As a president, he shouldn't. He's supposed to be the leader. He can't go out there and say things like I don't know. Why not? Do I really need another president to look at me and just give me the typical we're all gonna get through this, we're gonna persevere, but those are just words. Those mean nothing. That means you're doing nothing. I rather have a real reaction. I want a president who's like, I don't know. Like we're doing the best we can. We're trying to we're trying to figure this out. We're working on it. I don't know if this is gonna work because he's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He can't tell you if this is going to work. Because if he does and it doesn't, guess what? He gets shit for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy the way that things work. And so being then there in Illinois and Chicago and having a different set of beliefs and regulations put in place both from the mayor of Chicago and the governor of the state,
which they aren't following themselves, but okay. they want us to stay inside, but they're out all the time getting haircuts and I mean they're doing press conference. I'm like, you're constantly in situations that break social distancing.
Yeah. So I guess my question is your thoughts on how that's being handled on a local level on from your perspective.
They're up to something. You can't convince me that any of what's happening as far as the shutdowns is necessary. I understand how that can be a thought of like, oh well, maybe if we kind of close things down, keep people inside, it'll help not help cure, but it'll slow the spread. Well, you can't convince me that you actually want to slow the spread when you leave airports open, you leave public transportation open, which are guaranteed ways to spread this, like really fast and really vast. So the fact that those things are still open tells me they aren't too worried about the spread of this thing. They're not actually worried about this virus. That is not that big of a threat.
So if they were to take those measures and close down airports and be very strict about those things, would you agree with those measures because it's in line with everything else that they are putting in place? Or
that would make sense to me. That would convince me that, oh, okay, this virus is serious. Because if I was in charge, that'd be the first thing I would do. If I was in charge and there was this virus where how the news for months now has been telling us like, you're going to die. it's gonna kill you. You're gonna get it, and you're gonna go through hell. If that was real, my first thing would be like, okay, well, we got to close down airports. You can't travel from state to state because you can spread this real easy. I'm gonna close down the trains and CTA, all this stuff. So the fact that those are open, that's why I look at, well, if you're really worried about this thing, why are those things open? Those are guaranteed. Those are petri dishes,
Right.
just moving stuff around. So you're telling me that me not going to the store is gonna stop this thing over that airplane? So I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, their actions don't match what they're saying. Doesn't match what they're doing.
So then, and I guess so. You kind of alluded to like those are some things that you would put in place. Would I guess first of all, would you ever get into politics yourself?
I don't think the world would want me.
But is there a personal interest from your end?
Nah, I mean, not as politics as we know it, but I think there should definitely be someone like me in all these little governments, someone to look back and be like, okay, y'all want to close down the stores. Okay, explain to me how that's going to help. Because that's how I look at it. When I get frustrated when I go to the store and we have to line up outside the store. I'm like, okay, how is that helping? Because now I'm standing in line with these people who say the guy in front of me, the guy behind me has it, doesn't know he has it. I'm just standing with him now for an hour before we still go into this very same store. Nothing stopped the virus from entering that store just because we're lined up. Now you've had me next to this person for longer, whereas before it's a pretty big store like Sam's Club. We go inside, we're spread out. I'm getting my stuff and then I'm leaving.
Right.
So now you're actually keeping me here longer. So that would be my type of contribution to the government when we make these decisions. I'd be like, okay, I get your plan. Explain to me how that's going to actually change anything. How is that actually helping anything instead of making things worse? Yeah.
Do you think then kind of yeah, and going back to kind of what we alluded to a little bit ago about what kind of effect this will have on our world moving forward and the way that we do things.
Yeah.
Do you think that we will get back to a point where we're able to do large gatherings? Do you think that it will look vastly different than it has because of this fear that's kind of been put in place? Like, is there any point where we get back to normal?
Um, Sadly, no, because so many people subscribe to the fear aspect of this that they're forever going to act different now.
Regardless of whether it's
regardless
true
of
or
what
not.
happened.
I think at this point, the government can come out tomorrow and be like, all right, honestly, we just found out it ain't that bad. You guys go back to normal. There's still going to be a bunch of people being like, nah, it's bad. I've known people to die from it. So that fear is going to keep them from moving their life forward
Yeah.
because they're going to be afraid. I'm like, I say, I'm not saying people don't die from this. They do. But I'm not going to ignore the amount of people that survive this.
Sure, and that's something you've been vocal about too, and oddly have received some criticism on.
Yeah, I've received like anger from it.
Daily, you've been posting on Facebook the number of survivors or people who have contracted coronavirus who have not died from it or who have overcome it, and also alluded to the fact that there's probably several 100,000 more that have also
that have not been reported. I kid you not. I swear to you, I'm almost certain back in October I had this. And so did my brother because we got sick and it was a sickness that I've never felt before. I was like, man, it like knocked me on my ass for like 5 days, and I've never felt anything like it. But I recovered because we have immune systems, yeah. And that's what they're discovering now in their new studies. They're discovering like people have antibodies to it already, which means they already had it. And there's a whole
prior to February, prior to January, potentially.
Right, yeah, like, yeah. This is back in October. This is, I think, long. I think it has been proven now that this was here earlier than January. Yeah, and I think a lot of people have already gone through it.
Would you yourself get tested if testing becomes more readily available just to kind of prove that point? Yeah.
Like I'm actually curious about it. I want to go get tested to find out if I have the antibodies or if I currently have coronavirus, but I'm just okay. You know what I mean? Like my body's fine. I'm curious about it. I want to get tested just to know. Because that would support my argument of, hey, this is survival. And that's my thing. I'm not saying downplay it. I'm not saying don't be concerned. I'm not saying go out and get it. I'm saying like, hey, this is more survivable though. Like there is a good side to this thing. Don't just focus on the bad side because that's just going to destroy us if all we do is sit around and think about the deaths. When I'm like, there's far more. It's like 7 times more likely you're going to survive it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fair point. Again, not negating the fact that there's a level of seriousness to it, not negating the fact that there are people who are dying from it, but there's a lot of attention being put on those things, whether rightfully so or not. But there's also a significant amount of people who have interacted or contracted it and are fine.
Yeah, and And I think the media and the government needs to say those things, but they're not saying that. So all people are ever getting when they watch the news is negativity.
Because yeah, right. Because negativity is sexier than
Yeah, exactly. That's gonna get you the ratings. Exactly. And all people are doing on Facebook is talking, and well, all social media is talking about the negative side of it. And that's what's keeping us in a panic. And that's what's making people go out there and act irrational. The biggest threat with this whole thing now is people, not the virus. It's the way people are gonna react. Stores are being cleared out of essential things now because people are overreacting, because they're afraid, because no one's telling them, hey.
this and the strangest essential things.
Yeah, like toilet paper. Like, how much shit are you gonna do, man? I'm like, I would stock up on meat and freeze my, but you're like, I gotta get all this toilet paper. I'm gonna do a lot of shit. You know? Yeah, so it's like very weird things.
Yeah.
And I say, but it's because no one in the authorities are telling people, hey, calm down, live your life normal, don't overreact. This is highly survivable, but if we can, let's figure out a way to stop those from who are more likely to suffer from it. Let's figure out a way to protect them.
So if you were to summarize your message to viewers and listeners as to how you think that we should proceed from here on out and when things start to open it up and get back to some form of normalcy, what do you want people to take away based on your perception of everything?
Just live your life. There's it sounds very what's the word? I guess morbid to say, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, kind of. It is what it is.
Yeah, this is a virus. And I said it to my brother, and he kind of got upset. But I'm like, hey, man, if I get it and die, I get it and die. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't not work. I can't not go out there and be happy in life. I can sit here miserable all day. I can get really bad and probably get to the point of suicidal thoughts. Would you prefer that over me just going out there and being happy? And then I'm going to die regardless. Someday I'm going to die.
Sure.
So my whole thing is like, don't let stress be what kills you. Don't let panic be what kills you. Live your life. Enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Be smart. Take precautions. Like I said, I'm not afraid of this virus, but I still take precautions. I won't let my mom out the house. Yeah. And every day she's like, I'm not afraid of this. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, you never know. I'm like, people are doing very crazy things in these crazy times. So I'm like, I'll go to the store. I don't want you going there because I don't want her around those people. I'm like, fights are breaking out. I don't want you around that. I'm not worried about you getting the virus, but I'm like, people are acting really shitty.
Sure.
So I'm like, I take precaution. I'm not an idiot.
It all comes down to personal responsibility at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's why I mainly keep preaching. I'm like, just take care of your bubble. Stop worrying about everybody else. Oh, why are people going to the beach? Okay, you don't go to the beach. Don't worry about that. Yeah. I'm like, take care of your own bubble. That's all you can do. You can't control anyone else. You can't. And you're going to drive yourself insane trying to.
I think that's regardless of what you believe or subscribe to. I think that's a very fair message that is broad and well beyond anything that we're dealing with right now. Is take care of yourself, take care of your family, and focus on making sure that you're doing the next right thing for those of you who it impacts immediately. Yeah,
and if I always say, if you're afraid of something, look into it. Like, find out if you're afraid of something for no reason. Like, I'm not saying don't be afraid of this, but this crippling fear that people have right now is not healthy for them. I'm like, this virus is, I will always say the virus is weak, and people get mad, like, it's a weak virus by, like, virus standards, you know? I'm like, yeah, it can be contracted. It's like, it's more contagious than the flu. So that's scary. It can spread faster, which it already has. But I'm like, its kill ratio, the chances are you're going to survive. Unless you have other problems, underlying problems, then you're aware of that. People know if they have an immune deficiency and stuff like that, typically. So yeah, you take a little extra precaution, protect yourself. But like, don't ask the rest of the world to just shut down. Like, that's not healthy for anyone. It's going to get bad. How long? I mean, there were shootings by my house because I'm like, yeah, everybody's on edge. People can't get together anymore. Like, it was the first day we had like a 70 degree day. So people were outside kind of gathering, and then fights broke out like crazy because people don't know how to act now because they're just so pent up. So I'm like, that's worse than the virus. I'll take my chances with the virus over a mob of angry people. I'll take that any day. Give me the virus. Yeah.
Yeah. So to tie things back into wrestling a little bit, when things do end up opening up and we're able to get back to you're able to get back to training, we're able to get back to having shows again. on a personal level, are there precautions that you are going to take or change about the way that you hold your training sessions, about the way that you interact with other wrestlers when you're in certain environments, or anything that's going to change the way that you operate in that capacity?
No, it'll be the same as before. Like, I mean, we've always kind of had the idea, hey, if you're sick, stay the fuck at home. You know, even if you have a cold, don't come give us your cold.
Right.
You know, so it'll be the same thing. And as far as like shows go, no, because it doesn't matter. Like, if I stay away from you guys in the back, we're still gonna go to that same ring and wrestle. At some point, I'm gonna go in there behind the guy who was coughing, sneezing, rolling around on that mat. So there's no way to avoid it.
You know what I mean? So
Other than potentially keeping those people away from.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. If you're sick, don't come there. And that should be just common sense. That should be common courtesy. Don't bring your sickness to everyone else. Period. No matter what you have. So yeah. And if people aren't doing that, then there's nothing we can do. If someone decides to show up and they have the flu and they fight through it, then there's a risk that I might get the flu that night because of that person. There's nothing I could have done about that. Yeah.
So and one I guess one more point along those lines. Yeah. Wrestling rings and especially on the independent scene are not known to be the cleanliest of environments.
No one's washing their canvases. Yeah.
Do you foresee that happening now though, based on the fear?
You would hope. I mean, I hope that's one good thing that comes out, that we do see companies now be like, all right, let's go send this off to get steam cleaned or something. Yeah. Yeah, I would hope so, but not likely. But hey, that's what builds our immune systems, though. Like, we have to be exposed to things in order to build up from it. So I think because of the wrestling that we've done and the contact we've had, because wrestling is a contact sport, no matter how you want to look at it. So I think our bodies are used to like fighting off bacteria. I mean, we need that thing. That's a thing that we go say. It's the world. I can say that goes back to creationism. Everything is created in perfect harmony. Like, you got the good, you got the bad. We need those things for life to even exist. Yeah. So I think that's how everything's meant to be. So yeah, like, I don't know. Like, it may sound heartless, it could sound cold to some people, and I'm just like this is all nonsense. We need to be able to get back to our lives. I'm not saying it from a place of malice. I'm not trying to tell people, hey, forget all those people that died. They don't matter, because more people die every year. I'm not saying it like that. I'm saying, hey, that's life. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You know, we're gonna lose a lot of people every year.
Whether it's one thing, it's another.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's this or something else, where people are dying. There's nothing we can do about that. I understand taking precaution, but we gotta take precaution not this extreme, not something that's gonna cause more problems. And that's what this is doing. It's causing more problems.
Well, I appreciate the perspective and the insight. I think that a lot of people are gonna find it very interesting. I personally have found it very interesting. One or the other, but I mean, you stand behind it. It doesn't bother you.
Oh yeah, I'll always stand behind like, I mean, my whole thing is I'm willing to be proven wrong. If you can come to me with something that completely proves my belief wrong, so be it. Yeah. But yeah.
No, I think that's awesome, and certainly can appreciate the way that you present everything. So for the way that things are kind of going right now, hopefully we'll get back to business on a regular basis sooner than later. But until then, if there are any viewers or listeners who want to support Bryce Benjamin, Jesus Bryce, how can they do that? How can they discover you and kind of find you on your platforms?
Well, they can find me on my social media. Facebook, I'm Jesus Bryce. Twitter is Jesus Bryce at Jesus Bryce Walks. I think it's the same on Instagram.
Yep.
I'm really not tech savvy. And you can stop over to my Pro Wrestling Tee store, buy a shirt. I got my new Millennial Messiah shirts out, and I understand I'm probably gonna lose a lot of fans through all of this.
I don't know. You might gain quite a few. You never know.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure if everyone that I will lose, I'll gain. But my whole thing is, I also don't care. Like, I mean, because everybody's entitled to an opinion. Like, there was one fan, I don't know if I'll say his name. Paul knows who he is, Paul. And he's a great guy. And me and him were going at it. We completely disagree politically. And then even within our arguing on Facebook, we had a side message happen where he's like, hey, we're still cool, like, at shows and stuff, right? I'm like, absolutely. And I love that we disagree on this. But I'm like, that won't affect the fact that I still think you're a great guy. I
think that's one thing that not to drag any longer, but I think that's one thing that we tend to lose out on a societal level is that it's okay for us to not agree on everything, and it is okay to disagree and to have debates and argument.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, it's a subject or a team in school. There's debate club for a reason, because there are two sides, and certainly more than two sides in a lot of different instances to every subject. And you're obviously entitled, in this country at least, you're entitled to those opinions. Without becoming mortal enemies.
Yes, I don't like it when people get that way, where like people are losing friends literally over the fact that maybe your friend supports Donald Trump, and people will straight just be like, "We ain't cool no more." I'm like, why? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So you're gonna not be friends with them because they support this candidate? Again, the presidency is temporary.
Right.
So I don't understand why anybody acts like, "Oh my God, he's president. We're fucked forever." I was like, no, 8 years max, and then it's over. And then you get someone else there. Like, so I never understood the hatred over who's president. I didn't like Barack Obama, but I didn't give a shit. He was president. I'm like, yeah, he'll do his terms and then whatever. Someone else will be in. So I'm like, I don't understand why people get so like just like and will like lose friendships and relationships over this. Like, that never made sense to me. I'm like, I'm perfectly capable to still act known with you. Like I said, I guarantee you now that I am being more vocal about my political side of me and my beliefs, that there will be a few people who probably no longer going to be my fan, but again, I don't care. That's fine. Like, that's your choice, not mine. I'm not going to act different towards you. So yeah,
it's crazy how that works out, but certainly appreciate your honesty and appreciate your rhetoric on all of this, and I found it very insightful, and I hope a lot of people do as well.
I mean, hopefully it was understandable. Hopefully I didn't just sit there and for like an hour just blah 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 blah.
We can scroll through the comments later and see what the response is to a lot of this, as I'm sure it'll spark some kind of debate on social. But regardless,
love me or hate me, you're still talking about me. I don't care.
No, especially right now, we'll take anything that we can get. But man, I certainly appreciate the time. I appreciate the conversation, and I certainly look forward to being able to get to see you in person again very soon and get back to business.
Yeah, definitely want to get back in the ring. I'm definitely missing wrestling. Like, that's for sure. I'm not used to not fighting. So.
Oh, we all are, man. But I certainly appreciate it. Be well, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Take care. Love you, man.
Later, buddy.